Hi, and welcome again to another Mystery School edition. The topic tonight is apocalyptic resonance. I'm so grateful for every single one of you guys for joining and those who watch later on YouTube and Rumble. So let's go ahead and get started. If we could, let's go ahead and start with the first slide. Let's go ahead and start with the title itself. I felt like Spirit just kind of gave it to me. It was a download. I was a little bit unsure about using it in the context, but it just kept coming that was the right thing to do. So let's start with the apocalypse. It's not the doom and gloom and everything that everybody always talks about. I guess it could come with that, but the actual word apocalypse is a Greek word, and its meaning means to like uncover, and our disclosure of knowledge, lifting of the veil, a revelation in religious context. It is usually a disclosure of something hidden. So this is our apocalypse, to see through the veil. That's what the word is intended for. We have a lot of words in the English language that have been changed, modified, altered for many reasons, I think. But most people hear the word apocalypse, they're really talking about the doom and gloom and the fire and brimstone and all that stuff. And to me, when I think about it, I've always really concentrated on the fact that it is a seeing through the veil. It is a lifting of what is unknown to be known. So let's start with there. So apocalyptic resonance, apocalypse. We got that. It's the lifting of the veil. And Mike, I can't. Oh, here we go. Now we can. So let's go to resonance. So resonance is probably a little bit harder to describe, but it is an increase in the vibration amplitude of an object caused by another object vibrating at the same frequency. So we got two tuning forks here on this picture. And basically what they're saying, if you were to ring a tuning fork at, let's say, 528 hertz, the frequency of love and miracles and everything, and you had another tuning fork over here at the same vibration, if you were to ring this tuning fork over here without this one being touched, it would pick up on the waves from the sound coming from one tuning fork to the other, and this one would start to ring as well. So, resonance, vibration, resonance can shatter glass, can shatter a wine glass or something like that. But basically, even change the wording of objects. So an increase in vibration amplitude of people. I mean, let's talk about, so if apocalypse is a revealing of information, seeing through the veil, if somebody over here is starting to, see through the veil, then other people around them and in their community should be seeing through the veil too. Let's not just stop at people, but let's just stop at time periods and epochs and eras that we kind of see things as, linear time, past, present, and future. But when we look at time and everything deep down, we know all things are happening simultaneously at one time. And so we can see how if we had epochs and eras, millennia where things were going on, that same resonance would come back over and over and over again. And I believe that's what the scriptures, that's what so many books that have been handed down and passed down and found throughout history are suggesting to us, that there is an apocalyptic resonance that happens over and over again. And we see similarities and things happening over and over again. So before we go to the next slide, I want to kind of give a disclosure here. With this topic, I could use all kinds of different books, from the Mahabharata to Mayan to, all kinds of things. I really wanted to focus on the biblical text, the Bible. I felt like it was something that has been, for the most part, kind of the justice has not been served to it. And I feel like I want to do that for the Bible. So many people look at it as just like something that's not true, or some things that didn't happen. That it's more religious. To me personally, I feel like it's a historical book that are rewrite stories. So all these stories are found in other stories, like in Sumerian tablets, with much more detail. But these are stories that people knew were important, and they had to hide and conceal them. These were things that not just, were out in the open. These were books that were very important, very secretive, because if someone found it, they could probably lose their life for things like this. That's serious. And we need to take it as a historical book that has metaphors in it, that has understandings in it, technologies in it. I often try to refer to it as a technology. In all honesty, the Bible is like a UFO crashed in ancient times, and the people who found it were able to take apart slowly and then, maybe make a wheel out of it, like, oh, we found this wheel thing in there, we're able to use it for something like a wheelbarrow and carry things back and forth, when this thing is, so incredible, you could use it to fly around the universe in. And we're just scratching the surface of how important a book like this is. So I feel personally like I want to do it justice. I mean, again, many books were removed initially from the Bible when they found it in pyramids. It was written on ancient scrolls. They removed, the Council of Nicaea removed a lot of books. They changed a lot of words. They left a lot of words like the Elohim in the Bible, which is the Hebrew word for gods, Gods. But now we take that as Elohim as the name of God. So those things are really important to realize. Like, we've kind of got this watered down, cut up King James version, which no king, as far as I'm concerned, has really ever been on the side, at least the fake kings, not real kings like Christ or Buddha or Krishna, but has really been on the side of the people. So tonight, I really want to just take one source, although, like I said, we could use many different sources to really explain apocalyptic resonance, but I'm going to use just the Bible for tonight. So let's go ahead and move on. So one of the big things that I felt like was the first thing I had to address on apocalyptic resonance was, as in the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. So they literally said in the Bible, this direct quote, and what was going on back in Noah's day, and they definitely had a lot of people multiplying quickly. And I think that's because, like today, let's say today, we're having a huge, population burst in the past several decades, century or so. And a lot of it is because people are probably having sex without love. I mean, let's just be real. There's a lot of that happening. There's a lot of children being born without fathers, without stable home environments, and they're growing up in different ways. And so we kind of tend to see some of that stuff going on today. Sex to me is something that's supposed to be beautiful, something about love, something you share with your partner, not just something to go out and, blank someone, I mean, that's definitely a different type of interaction than, love. Because when you're having sex with somebody, you are downloading and uploading all their emotions, all their feelings, all their understandings, the things that they've learned, haven't learned, the things that they struggle with. And if you are not a very sound mind and centered person, you're going to download all that stuff from them and take it on as your own. And that's, to me, what marrying is. When you marry up with people and your energy is connected, when they're down, you can be down. When they're angry, you're angry. The things that they're struggling on right now can be things that you take on and start to struggle with. So the sex in general, to me, is the most sacred ceremony that we have. And it's right now, it seems more than ever with online and everything else, it's something that's not a sacred ceremony. It's something that's just, more mere physical than anything else. They tend to talk about wickedness and things and people, being evil and stuff like that. And, I don't want to compare that one as much, but there are definitely some bad things going on our planet right now that seem to be very similar to some of the things that were happening back then. At the end of the day, I believe all this is cycles of time, of light and dark, that help us to see contrast, which I think is incredibly important. Really to understand that saying, it's not happening to us, but it's happening for us. And really deep down know that in your heart, everything that's unfolding in some way is happening for you to learn, for you to grow, for you to evolve. And that's really important. So let's go ahead and we'll go from Noah, we'll go to Moses. And again, I'm going to skip around a little bit. I'm going to stay in the Old Testament here for the most part. But I want you guys to know, when I was talking about the Bible earlier, and it being kind of broken up, one of the things about the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is not in chronological order. You may think that, but definitely not. It may seem like that, but different stories, just because they came before in the scripture itself, doesn't mean that story came in the same timeline. So I will skip around a little bit, but I'll mostly stay in the Old Testament. So I want to talk about Moses, and I want to talk about the Promised Land, because it is something now I feel like more than ever. We see memes like this all the time. Me trying to convince my friends we should go buy a very large plot of land and start a community. I cannot tell you, I know there's people watching me right now at this moment that are on this talk, that I've sat down around my table and their table at home and had that exact same conversation. So many people have that dream right now of, not really caring about the cars and the clothes and the money and the big house, but really, let's get some land. Let's work together. Let's be pushed to a way of life that doesn't work for all of us, right? Let's work together so that we're not, completely complacent on the government and their water and their electricity. And, part of being free is being able to make it on this land without kind of suckling on the tit of the government. Like, let's be honest, like, how many people really want that right now? I see memes like this all the time. It resonates with me. So many conversations about that. It just seems like this promised land is calling to us again, literally calling to us and saying, you got to come here. You got to cultivate me. You got to work together as one in order to survive. And I think that's really important. It's something more than a conversation that we have at our table that's happening, that we have to get all our money together and buy a plot. My deep down, most natural feeling in my connectedness to source says that land eventually won't even have to be paid for by money. That there is land out there that's calling to all of us to come out, and the ones who need to be there will get there some way, somehow. But just like Moses had to go get his people out of Egypt. He literally had to go free his people, free my people from the Egyptians. All his people were literally slaves. They were enslaved in Egypt. And then we have to ask ourselves, why was entire people completely enslaved? I often ask myself this question, and, were they canceled? Did they not follow some kind of mandate? What kind of things like that are happening today, where many people are being canceled and completely off-written by the things that they think, the things that they believe, the spirituality they want to subscribe to? If it doesn't fall into some mainstream, people are getting canceled in the same way. Is it possible that there are camps and things set up for people who don't want to follow the guidelines of the elite that's happening right now on this planet? And I'm just asking the questions. I think it's very possible, though. And so once Moses is able to, after many different types of things that they had to do to get those people out, because they obviously didn't want to let them go, but they had frogs come, and all kinds of different famines and things happen, and finally he lets his people go. And so they're rolling around the desert, trying to get to the promised land. And God, this Lord, this person who's helping them get through, literally doesn't let them go by themselves. They have different technologies and things that they're taking on that they're able to use to help them get to where they need to be. So they're not completely just lost and forgotten. They're being helped, which I think we should think about a little bit ourselves. Like, we need to have a little bit more faith. A lot of people are just worried that bad things are coming, they're happening, and things are too expensive. Like, just have a little bit more faith. When we believe, we can achieve. When we resonate with, everything's happening for me. I'm not here as some little speck on this earth to, pay bills and taxes and waste away and die. There's a purpose for all this living. There's a purpose of growing. There's a purpose for evolving. And we need to have a little faith in that. One of the big miracles that happens for Moses, is very well written about, is the parting of the waters. That these people are trying to get away from the Egyptians. They're backed up against this huge water, and they don't know what to do. And Moses literally parts the waters. This is a magical miracle. And so many people want to say in science, oh, this happened or that happened. I don't believe that at all. I believe 100% that whatever you believe in, when you need something most, and that it's going to happen for you, it will. If you have that kind of steady faith, all things are possible. I 100% believe that. And I do believe that Moses parted the waters, and that these people walked on dry land. And as the Egyptians followed them, and the water, fell for them, they weren't trying to hurt them. They weren't trying to kill them. They were just trying to get away and have freedom. And there were other people who didn't want that for them. That's really important to believe. Sometimes we have to realize that our freedom is important, and we need to go get it. We need to get after it. And, no matter what, believe that God's source is going to take care of us, and miracles will happen. And knowing that everything's a miracle, that the fact that you're here is a miracle, that the fact that there's life on this planet while it revolves around a plasma star in the middle of the universe, it's just incredible. Like, miracles stacked upon miracles every day happen for us to live and breathe and enjoy this beautiful planet that we live on. And so I think we have to realize sometimes that there are a lot of miracles out there, and we can too perform miracles. We perform them every day when we fix things and work on things and do things, but certainly bigger miracles are available to us as well. And so while they're wandering around in the desert, they're very thirsty. There's no water, and Moses has to strike up another miracle again. And he strikes the rock, and all of a sudden, out of a stream comes out of it. And if everyone's able to drink from that, the livestock's able to drink from that, and they're no longer thirsty. Same thing with the manna from heaven. They're literally walking around. They're hungry. Another miracle is provided for them. Whatever you want to consider the manna to be, at some point it seems to just magically appear and fall from the sky, and they have that manna. And I think this is really important. I want to share this from my own life. There's always things where miracles can happen. And I had a friend tell me not too long ago, they were driving across the country and they were just having the best time ever and so grateful and so happy. And they went across the state and they looked down at the fuel gauge, and no gas had gone down. And they went through an entire state. And they said, there's no way that could have happened. There's no way that should have happened. But we know when we're engaged in the moment, right here, right now, miracles can happen when we're totally present, when we're really having, an incredible time, really engulfed in this present moment. I think all things can really be possible at that moment when you're not thinking about the worries and the anxiety, the fear of the past. It's really important to realize that all things are possible. And I totally believe that guy when he told me that the gas didn't run out. There's other stories like that in the Bible as well. Elijah visits this lady, and he says, make him some bread, and she doesn't have any. She says, I got just tiny little bit. And he goes, make me some first, and then make some for yourself. Once she did that, her flour and her meal never ran out. She never ran out again. She never had to go to the store. She never had to fill it up again. And I think about that all the time, and I'm like, man, when food prices are so high right now, is it possible at all that we could bless our food? We could be grateful for it. We could hand it over to others, and we could multiply it, as Jesus did when he fed, 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Are those miracles? Are they possible? Are these all stories? I've had things like that happen. I had a rock band thing I used to have back in the day. Played it all the time, got super tired of it. I couldn't give it away, couldn't sell it. And I just forgot about it, had it in the closet. And then one day, I had homeless people come up to me all the time, asking for money. And I always gave money, but I had this kind of, those moments in your life and you realize I'm struggling with this. Is this person going to go buy drugs or whatever at this hour? People told me not to. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to do it for a while. So for a couple of months went by and I didn't give anybody money. But I had made a bunch of money. I was going to yoga. I was doing my meditation. I was feeling good. Went to work one night, started to walk home. I had lots of money in my pocket. And it was this homeless couple came up to me and asked me for money. And I gave them $20. They wanted a couple dollars to eat something right then. I gave them $20, said, here's something for the morning too. And I gave them both a hug. I told them I loved them. And I really meant it. And I had no attachment to that $20 whatsoever. And so I went to bed and woke up the next morning. And the next morning, an old girlfriend called me and said, do you still have that rock band? And I said, I do. And she said, I have a friend who wants it. And I told him what you got, and she's going to call you. And she said she'd probably give you like $200 for it. And I was like, okay, that's great. That's fine. You could have it for $20. I hung that phone up, and that light bulb goes off, the eureka moment, the aha moment, where, you kind of realize something, you learn something. And I realized at that moment, it was 100% obvious to me that because I had given money just a few hours earlier and give it gratefully with no attachment, $200 was 10 times the amount that I just gave away of something I couldn't give away. And it made me realize like everything out there is out there for me, but I have to line up with all the things that I want to get them. And if I do that, my life can turn into abundance of miracles. I've had bicycles given to me on the same day that I knew I was going to get a mountain bike, and someone gave one to me a couple hours later. Miracles are not just parting waters, but they're getting the things that you need when you need them, when your family needs them. And so I believe that we could drive around all week long and not lose any gas? I think it's possible. I'm not saying that I drive around and do that, but I do think that is possible. I do think that we could have food that never ran out, drinks that never ran out. I do believe that. And I think that's something that if we only started to believe it again, maybe we would actually see that kind of stuff happening again. Another miracle that happened was the walls of Jericho. And these guys were walking around the walls of Jericho, and they walked around a couple of days in a row. And they had, I think it was 6 days, 7 days, and they had to walk that amount because if they walked 5, it wasn't going to work. But on the 6th day, they walked around and they're blowing ram's horns the whole time, which we have to really think about this and use our brains that we have now and kind of not think that just because this happened thousands of years ago, these people weren't as intelligent or didn't have as much understanding of the universe or how it works. I think for the most part, they had a lot more understanding, and we're just starting to wake back up again and understand it again. But I think the ram's horns, to me, I've always believed that it was some kind of sound technology that they had. And by having the faith, again, not being attached to the outcome, but walking around, blowing those horns, that they were able to pull the walls down. And I've had little visions for myself that I believe could be the same things. What if we had some enlightened beings who are able to do similar things and walk around the walls of the Pentagon, walk around the walls of Washington, D.C., any of these institutions that are trying to enslave us, and we were able to do something similar and the walls were literally crumbled to the ground? Is this possible? Can we do things like this today? I mean, I honestly, I really do believe this. I really do see this as a future thing for us. This is something that was put into a book and kept very, very much with a lot of intention. This would come out later, that people would read this and realize these things happen. You guys got to know this, that we did this and you'll do it again. You have to do it again because these institutions will enslave you if you don't. And so I think this is incredibly important for us to go back and read these stories again with an open mind, with the new way of thinking, with the brains that we have now, and seeing it from their eyes as well, kind of marrying, past and present together in the now, so that we're able to see incredible things that were done. And these weren't made up stories. These are real stories that happened, and they will happen again. Another story I find just really incredible was Lot, and he's in his city, and this apocalyptic time is coming and things are going to crash. And, he has these, entities, at the very least, coming and tell him it's time to leave. We got to get out of here. And they tell him, as you're leaving, don't turn and look. His wife turned and looked. She becomes a pillar of salt. I don't know if this is a nuclear fallout war or whatever. It's very much possible. Places like Mohenjo-Daro have the vitrification of the sand, which has to be something super hot to hit to create glass from sand. But, there are always people, always some kind of entities, angels or someone who seems to bring people knowledge of information on things that are going to happen. The ant people bringing people underground in Native American legends to save them from some kind of apocalyptic things that are happening. So I think these are important too, to realize that, if you have the faith, if you really believe, if you really have done your inner work and you have your connection with source, why would you be left out? Why would you not have that knowledge? We have to start believing, why not me? And so here's another great story. So most of you might have heard the story of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. There are 3 guys who pretty much roll up into Babylon. If they play music, Nebuchadnezzar says you should worship this golden idol. They're like, we're not going to do that. That's not who, that's not who we're in. That's not who we worship. That's not, what we want to do. So they refused to do it. People in town went and told them. They said, hey, man, you're going to do this when the sound hits, or we're going to throw you in that fiery furnace. And in fact, pretty much to scare them, they turned the furnace up 7 times hotter than it normally is. And when the guys went over there to go check it, they like passed out just by getting too close. So they got the furnace all hot. They're trying to scare them, intimidate them, which happens a lot today, right? People trying to intimidate people not to speak out, not to say things. And so they refused again. And so they threw these 3 guys, they bound them up, tied them up, throw them in the furnace. And as they're in there, eventually they start to stand up in the furnace. And not only do they stand up, the 3 of them, but then there seems to be someone else, which is referred to as the Son of God, stand up in there with them. And they were able to walk out. And Nebuchadnezzar walks up to them and, asks them, hey, is that the Son of God with you? And, he lets them go. And after that, he doesn't require, them to worship their golden idol anymore. So these are pretty incredible things that people, and this is called martyring, that people would be killed for their spiritual beliefs, that if you don't believe what this city or this king tells you to do, you can be killed for it. And this happened a lot in the past. And I think that's because, hey, if you don't do as we say, you'll end up dead. It seems to be maybe not where we're completely at right now, but definitely maybe a path that we may be going, that we need to at least know our past to not repeat it. And so this story of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego bring me to a story of Antipas, who is referred to in the Bible, but his story is not very well known. And I just recently learned of it myself. It came about, and I felt like this story pretty much created this entire talk tonight. And so this is something that is really important, and I want to share with you guys. So Antipas, Saint Antipas at that. Saint Antipas lived a little bit after Jesus did, after he died. He was considered to be a saint. This guy walked around, he cast demons out of people. He was considered to be a healer. And his specialty was mouth diseases, which is kind of funny, but that's what he did. He was able to cure mouth diseases, anything that you had, probably sores and ulcers and things like that. But he cast demons out of people. So again, the people of the time, the kings and the Sadducees and Pharisees saying, hey man, you can't cast demons out of people. You're not allowed to do that. Don't do that. And if you do that, we're gonna kill you. We're gonna martyr you for doing things like that. Well, Antipas is just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Is like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. This is God's work, and this is what I'm gonna do. So Antipas goes along doing that, and he's martyred. He's martyred during the reign of Nero, and they put him into a brazen bull. And so that's kind of like a metal bull that someone would stick someone into, and they would heat the fire underneath, and you would literally be burned up in the metal bull. Many people died this way. And they expected him to, call out and suffering and be, obviously very hurt by this. But the whole time that Antipas was in there, he praised his God and he worshiped his God, and he never screamed or hollered or anything like that. And story says that when Antipas was pulled out, he wasn't burned, although it seemingly he was dead, and they buried him. And people still made homages to his grave and were still, cured of diseases, especially mouth diseases, when they would go to where he was buried. But he wasn't burned, supposedly. And I think this is an incredible story. And I want to share I want to share with you the passage in the Bible that I believe is really important about this whole entire thing. So we're at Revelations 2:12. These are the words of him who has the sharp double-edged sword. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, not even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives. Okay, so this is basically saying where Satan's throne is and where Satan lives is where Antipas was martyred. Again, killed for his spiritual beliefs. Antipas was, scholars say Antipas was martyred in Lyons. Now that doesn't make a big deal for a lot of people, but if I were to tell you that Geneva, Switzerland is now where Lyons is, there may be a couple things that would come up for some people. Number one, CERN is in Geneva, Switzerland, and they're doing some things there I probably wouldn't want to do myself, opening up portals and things that may not be. I think our technology surpassed that of humanity, and we're doing things because we can do them, not because we know what we're doing. Even the emblem on CERN is 666 in a way that flows from one circle around, but it's 3 6s on the cover of their emblem. And not only that, but the biggest thing is there are 33 world organizations that are centered in Geneva, Switzerland, from the WHO, World Health Organization, to the World Economic Forum. Now, these are the people that I believe that are trying to bring down different politicians in every country to have their agenda be used all around the world. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the fact. That's what they're doing, and everything that they're saying, from their 15-minute cities to how they want to deal with viruses and things like that, is all being implemented all around the world. In fact, Cleveland, Ohio now wants to be the first 15-minute city in America. And I think we should know about those things so we don't repeat these same things that we are being able to be used by them to shut us down much quicker. If you don't know about 15-minute cities, it's basically they want us to be able to live in a city. You don't need a car. You can walk to work. You can walk to the grocery store. Everything that you need is within a 15-minute radius. And so we're not going to produce too much carbon. And I believe that's the next thing, is to monitor our carbon rates, so we're not allowed to eat or use an airplane or drive a car too much over our limit, whatever each person has per month. This is something dangerous in order for them to be able to monitor that for the climate control, which I don't believe is because they care about the climate or the planet itself. It's to monitor humans. So anyways, that is a huge deal. That to me says, back in Antipas's day, this is where Satan's throne was, this is where Satan lived. And nearly 2,000 years later, here we are with the world organizations headed in the same exact city. To me, that's the resonance. The same thing is going on. It never stopped. It always has been happening. And we are just now starting to realize that things haven't gotten worse. They're just becoming uncovered. We are just now starting to realize it. And we have always, when I say we, I mean our people, have always been martyred. We've always been and killed for our spiritual beliefs. Every country, all around the world, on every continent, from witches to wizards to saints. I believe that we have been martyred to not stand out, to have people not step out of line. I mean, they don't want that. And I'm not trying to say they is that we're not everyone. It's all we're all together, but there are forces that want to take advantage of us. And if I'm not aware of that, if I'm not aware of someone who wants to take advantage of me, how can I stop it? How can I realize my own worth? I'm thankful for that at the end of the day. I'm thankful because it gives me the opportunity to realize my worth. But, there are entities out here on this planet that want to, enslave us and use us and use our energy. And that's something I think is really important. And so, again, the saints have always been martyred. These really good, beautiful, amazing people have always, I think this is St. Andrew, have always been killed, not just Jesus, but there have been lots of saints throughout the history of, especially the past couple thousand years, to get people just to stay in line. Don't ask questions. Don't get out of line. Just do what we tell you. Worship what we tell you. Go to school. Don't ask too many questions, and you'll be fine. But I think what we have to realize now is our time. Now is our time to take all the things that we've learned. And I believe that we have lived lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. I do believe in reincarnation. I believe that Jacob Cox is an entity that dies in the end of the game, but my soul is eternal, and it will continue to replenish itself. It'll continue to come back over and over again to learn lessons, to evolve, to grow. No matter can be created or destroyed. It's only used over and over again. And my body, my physical body that'll happen. And my spiritual body, I believe the same thing will happen as well, that I will continue to reincarnate. And I believe we have come to this incredible moment in time so that we are able to graduate from this karmic cycle. and not be incarnated into another body and forget who we are anymore. So when we wake up completely, we don't have to come back into a body just to forget who we are. We'll remember. And I believe wholeheartedly that the stories in the Bible of Revelations of the 144,000, and I heard the number of them, which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the children of Israel. Revelation 7:4. And I want to read this one to you. This is Revelations 4:1. The Lamb and the 144,000. Then I looked, and there before me was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a sound from heaven like the roar of a rushing waters and like a loud peal of thunder. The sound I heard was like the harpists playing their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne and before four living creatures and the elders. No one could learn the song except for the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. These are those who did not defile themselves with women, for they remained virgins. They followed the Lamb wherever he goes. They were purchased from among mankind and offered as first fruits of God and the Lamb. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. So I want to go back real quick, and it says they didn't defile themselves with women. And I just want to say this is, ancient people putting into stories things that they believe. I don't think that, defiling yourself with women is the term that I would use today with it. But what I think they're trying to say is these people were pure. They were pure minds, pure heart. I don't necessarily believe that they never had sex. That's saying that someone could not become a Christ after they had sex. I certainly believe that there is a level of enlightenment, of becoming a Christ or becoming a Buddha or a Krishna that is certainly attainable for every single human that on this planet right now. That I certainly do believe is possible. And we have to maybe come to that realization that each one of us can be that. Christ said, you can do all the things I'm doing and greater things. And why don't we do those things? Because we don't believe it. And if we don't believe it, how can we ever achieve it? How can we honestly do something that if we don't believe it? We're never going to. If you don't believe it, you're not going to get there. But certainly, I feel like this entire book is filled with prophets and people. Moses had a speech impediment and didn't believe he was supposed to go get anybody or save anybody or do anything for anyone other than himself. And so God calls on people with pure hearts, people with good intentions, people who really care about other people and who have beautiful souls and beautiful minds. And it doesn't matter what you've done, I believe, up until this point. Everybody can get there. All your experiences are valid. To me, the person who knows the light the best is probably the person who knows the dark in the same amount. And so these people can literally help change the world. 144,000 people is what I believe is a resonant frequency of enough people on the planet who make it into the Christ consciousness that can literally change this planet back to what we want to see and to what we want it to be like, that beautiful Garden of Eden that it once was, and it still is. But it's just distorted. It's just a reality that's just a holographic universe that's just distorted a little bit. And I think that distortion is a fear factor to get people not to step out of line, not to do more than you're supposed to, not to ask more questions, just take what we've been given. But we all know deep down inside of us, something doesn't feel right about that anymore, that we have to step out, we have to step up. And knowing that if not that everyone has to believe that part of the 144,000, but believe that you yourself and your works, you telling your truth, you being honest, you being a good person, you being helpful, you being a loving, caring, doing your inner work, getting over the traumas that have happened in your life. That is so important and so vital to bringing up the collective consciousness of this planet. A few people really hating themselves and really being stuck in how negative and how terrible life is and how they're not worthy of anything can really bring it down. And certainly 8 billion people and a vast majority of that who don't know who they are, who aren't connected to source, or at least feeling disconnected to source, are really bringing down an astronomical amount. And so I think we need to understand that. And so this is an important line, I think, in Revelations as well. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So that means listen up. To the one who is victorious, I will give him some of the hidden manna. I also give that person a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to those who receive it. And so, first of all, I want to go just talk about number one, right? Jesus Christ. And at this point, I think most people are aware that Jesus the Christ's name was not Jesus. His name was Yeshua. And I believe that time that he's missing from 13 to 30, he's going out and he's visiting the churches and he's visiting temples and he's doing the work. And he goes into the wilderness and he's tempted by this, Satan. And I believe at that moment in that wilderness expedition, he becomes Jesus Christ. I believe that's when his name changed. I believe Mary Magdalene, I don't believe that was her real name. I believe Mary was her title. Mary of Magdalene, she was married. Her masculine and feminine were married inside of her, and she was an enlightened being. I also want to just bring up Jacob. Jacob was the father of the 12 tribes. He wrestled with an angel, and because he didn't succumb and he basically won, God changed his name to Israel. His name has changed. Abednego, Meshach, Shadrach, every single one of those guys that were in the burning furnace, their names were changed. It's something different to the names that I just read to you. They were something different before that. Daniel's name, Hosea, Simon, Abram, Sarai, every one of those people that I just mentioned, their names were changed in the Bible. It wasn't just Jesus, and they don't really talk about it, but it does state all that in the Bible in itself. To me, again, these were people who had a life, who did incredible things. Jacob himself was very malicious. He stole his brother's birthright. He was, very manipulating. And it was later in life that he became the person that he became. And these name changes are significant. I think it's why a lot of people probably change their name today. But I believe deep down that white stone could probably be your pineal gland or something like that. And when you clear that thing out, when you squeegee it out and that thing works really good, there's a name written on your white stone, your pineal gland, whatever it is. I'm not claiming to know it, but I do believe that each one of us have a name, a Christ-given name that each one of us, when we hit that title, we become. In the symbolic reference, the Pope, when the person, whatever they are, become the Pope, they change their name. And I think when I look at all these things that are happening in our world and how I don't like to use the word, but the Illuminati or, the elites are trying to do things. It's very similar to how things work naturally, but they're just twisting it up so that they can control it. But certainly, I don't believe the Pope is an enlightened being. I believe it's a falsehood, but he's changing his name nonetheless in a similar manner that someone would become a Christ or a Christian, I believe. So these 144,000 people, this incredible new earth and new heaven, and so many people say, new earth is such a new age terminology. New earth is literally in your Bible. Anybody who wants to doubt it, look it up. Revelation 21:1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. So in Revelations, it talks about a new earth and a new heaven and a new city coming down of gold and 12 crystal layers to it. And that is what will bring us into 1,000 years of peace. And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil. The ancient serpent who is the devil. You watched my last video on the moon matrix, and that makes a lot of sense. Our Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked it and sealed it over him to keep him from deceiving the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were ended, and that he must be set free for a short time. So we have 1,000 years coming. So this to me is, again, significant of an age of peace, of a golden age, the end of this Kali Yuga, that every book that I could, that I can think of at the top of my head symbolizes that we're going into. That the Bible certainly says the same thing, that we are going into a new age. So this is not new age jumbo. This definitely comes from the Bible itself, saying that there's a new peace that's going to be on this planet. And so I am very I'm very excited. I'm very grateful to be at this time. I think every single one of us should be, no matter what the trials and tribulations are. I believe that we as a people must know that we are cared for, that we're loved, that we're beautiful beyond our wildest dreams. We're loved beyond our wildest dreams. And just to have that faith and that we're here for a reason. You matter. Everyone matters. Everyone's God wrapped up in a flesh puppet. You know what I mean? Start to see the world like that. Start to see every single person as God in the flesh, even if they don't know it, if they don't recognize it. Have compassion and empathy and love for each person. Every single time you do that, every single day, we're going to level up this planet and we're going to change it. And there's no dark that can hide from the light. You cannot go into a well-lit room with any amount of darkness and have any effect. But you can go into a dark room with a tiny little candle, and instantly that darkness will flee once you light it up. It's a metaphor that we must know that we can change this planet, we can change our world. And it starts with every single one of us. Each one of us should not be looking for someone on the sky to come down and rescue us and save us. If Christ or God is in us, that God is love and we love each other, God dwells within us, then we must know certainly that when we love, that God is in us and that we are that. We're that powerful, we're that amazing. And each one of us should strive, I believe, to find that enlightenment, to find that love, to find that Christ consciousness that dwells within all of us, that pure consciousness, because there's 1,000 years of peace in it. And I think if we don't make it into this time, we'll probably reincarnate on other planets to get there and do it in some other way. This seems to be an evolution that just seems natural of things that will happen, whether we're on this planet or another planet. But I certainly want to offer that to people, that this is possible. I'm not sitting here saying I have all the answers and I know everything that's going to happen. I certainly don't. I think that's the best thing about it. I feel like the universe and God gives you a little bit of that manna, a little bit of that breadcrumb, and you want more and more and more, and you continually search for more answers. One of my favorite Bible verses is, Mike, you can move that off if you want. Blessed is he that's poor in spirit. And what that means to me is I'm poor in spirit. I've got a little bit, but I need a whole lot more because I need it. That's what drives me. It's what gets me, a guy like me who doesn't have the charisma as Russell Brand or, the following of Joe Rogan, but I'm here to put what I think in the world is important, what I would like to share with people, a positive message of something that matters. And I think deep down, people watch this and see the significance of this entirety of this presentation and realize that, I'm not saying any one person is better, that each and every one of us, it's dire for us to create the world that we want. So thank you guys for joining me. Very, very extremely grateful for this talk. I think it's been something in the works for a long time that's been just really downloaded from spirit. And I'm incredibly grateful to be able to hear that voice in my head that tells me, read this, check this out. And I want to encourage every single one out there to listen to that voice in your head. God is not found in one book alone, for sure. It's omnipresent, omnipotent. It's in every person. It's in everything that you can imagine. If we start to see that, I believe those breadcrumbs will happen for all of us and realize what path to go down. So tonight, I thank every single person who is online with us tonight, and every person who will watch this YouTube or presentation on Rumble or wherever else you may find on Ascension Works TV or wherever it pops up for you. But hopefully, please share, subscribe, and let's create the world that we need, that we deserve. And thank you guys. Namaste.